Hey everyone, Tony D. Little Jones asleep on the couch in the back room, or front room, I should say. So it's just little old me. But let's see what trouble we can get into on the internet tonight. Smash like and subscribe, etc., etc. But most importantly, check me out on BitChute and Rumble. I don't know how long I'll be here, especially when I talk about stuff like this. So please, please, just start an account, follow me on BitChute and Rumble, and when I get kicked off of YouTube, you don't see me anymore, you know where to go. Revealed, U.S. Navy forces sailors to commit to all lived experiences and intersectional identities. Yes. This is what James Lindsay has been warning of. And this is what we're going to get. We're going to get the wokest Navy in the world. Oh, they're not just going to be singing YMCA. Oh, no. It's going to be woke. We will have the wokest fighting force in the seven seas. In June 2020, the Navy created Task Force Navy 1. It sounds like something military, right? Which was, quote, established to combat discrimination in the Navy. So far, so good. The recently released findings of the task force include the pledge, the TF1N pledge, in which members of the task force take a pledge to inclusivity and self-reflection. This is not a drill. The pledge reads, quote, as a key member of Task Force 1 Navy, I will invest my time, attention, and empathy required to analyze and evaluate Navy-wide issues related to racism, sexism, ableism, and other structural and interpersonal biases. Yeah, this came from the Navy. I pledge to be actively inclusive in the public and private spheres where I live and work, and proactively encourage others to do the same. This is an actually woke Navy officer. You are pledged to wokeness. You're not pledged to the Constitution. You're pledged to wokeness. This is insane. I pledge to advocate for and acknowledge all lived experiences and intersectional identities of every sailor in the Navy. And when one of those sailors says, I'm an apricot, what are you supposed to do? You have to acknowledge it, or you're a bigot. If that sailor says, my lived experience, well, you haven't cleaned your area, sailor. Oh, well, my lived experience, I prefer to have it dirty. What are you going to say to that? My lived experience is I don't get up before noon. My lived experience is I think I should be in charge. I mean, you can't address these things. It's supposed to be a military. They're supposed to listen to their officers. They're not supposed to complain like a bunch of teenagers at a high school who don't understand commitment. You're supposed to understand commitment when you join the Navy, right? You join the Navy because you're going to put on a uniform. Not a multiform, but a uniform. So you're going to be like everybody else in the Navy, and then you're just a cog in the machine, in the war machine. And you serve your time, and you either stay in and rise up, or you serve some time, make some money, and go to college or whatever. You don't get involved in this, not in the wokeness. This is a complete distraction. If there's a war, this stuff, you can't keep doing this stuff. You can't do this stuff during a war. What are we gonna do, sir? They're coming over the fence. They're shooting people. Excuse me. I didn't identify as sir. They're killing us, sir. I mean, ma'am. I didn't say ma'am either. I mean, is this what we're gonna do? Seriously? In the military? Look, if you live your private life, you want to be called whatever you want to be called. But it's different in the military. You have to listen to your superiors. Or it's not even a military. If at any time you could say to your superiors, no. What's the point? We need you to go die on that hill. No, that's not my lived experience, please. Oh, I think you're discriminating against me. Let's have a dialogue before we fight the war. It's not what war is. Continuing, I pledge to advocate and acknowledge all lived experiences and intersectional identities of every sailor in the Navy. That will be an utter disaster. The Navy will fall to pieces. It'll literally fall to pieces. I pledge to engage in ongoing self-reflection, education, and knowledge sharing to better myself and my communities. Well, that sounds okay. But this whole idea that you're going to have to acknowledge all lived experience and intersectional identities, you know, they're very petty people within the military already, and they abuse their power greatly. So now imagine you have, I don't know, let's just say a person of indeterminate gender who wants to play games with either a superior. Sometimes it's a superior, right? Because if you're like a petty officer in charge of supplies, and some young officer shows up, you don't technically outrank them, but you technically have more power. And the opposite, of course, is true too sometimes, right? You've got an officer and an enlisted person. So if they suddenly cry, "Oh, you misgendered me, I'm going to fill out a report against you," what are you going to do? You're going to have to go and explain yourself, and it'll be very tedious. This is the exact sort of thing that people who are militant about gender stuff, especially on Twitter, do all day. You give them any kind of validation through a system in the military, you're asking for it. You really are. They will grind things to a halt. Grind it to a halt until you acknowledge them and kiss their feet and call them all sorts of nice things, and then maybe they'll give you what you want. I pledge to be an example in establishing healthy, inclusive, and team-oriented environments. Obviously written by someone who, I don't know, hasn't actually been in the Navy. I mean, this sounds like it was all written by college people who don't actually serve in the actual Navy, because that's not what necessarily happens. You can't bond when you're too busy pointing out everybody's differences and saying, "Oh, you got everybody has to acknowledge everybody's differences and lived experiences, everyone." That's not how you bond. You don't force people to do that. You bond by living together and working together, and then eventually you find out about people just by being around them long enough. And yeah, there's some miscommunication. Sometimes there's fights even. But typically in the military, that all just boils over, and then the commander comes in and goes, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're fighting because this guy said this." "Okay, you two go out and swab the decks for 7 days," or some ridiculous task that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And then they become buddies because you made them go out and, I don't know, swab the deck of the sub, and then you left them out there for 8 hours, and then they bonded. I mean, that's the kind of stories that you hear in the military. Guys who, they hated each other at first, and then they became friends. You don't bond people by saying, "Well, this person has a different gender identity, and we all have to sit around and create a dialogue." That's not what happens. That's like corporate newspeak. Okay? That's what people in the corporate world do. You're not friends with those people necessarily. I mean, you could be, but you don't bond with them. It's different in the military. They might have to fight and die together. They need to rely on each other. You can't force them to like all this stuff. You're just going to drive people out of the military. And you're going to be desperate to get people in. And there'll be some people who will be able to break all these rules with impunity. That's going to be true. The people who are the right race and the right gender identities could do whatever the F they want, and they will abuse that power. And the people who aren't will have to suffer. This is a new kind of racism, and we've now indoctrinated the Navy. They're not destroying racism, they're institutionalizing it with this. Continuing with the pledge. I pledge to constructively share all experiences and information gained from activities above to inform the development of Navy-wide reforms. Again, That's not the purpose of the Navy. Okay? The purpose of the Navy isn't wokeness. Yes, you shouldn't have discrimination. You should all work together. But this is not going to work. You're trying to be inclusive for... The whole point is to be inclusive by making everybody exactly the same, to make everyone uniform. They're doing everything to the military to not make it uniform. They just announced that women in the military, I guess in the Army, can now wear lipstick and fingernail polish and wear their hair differently. Oh, that's really going to scare the enemy, isn't it? Oh my God. We were going to kill these people, but they look so great. I mean, phew. Look at the nails on that one. She is fine. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone's just flagged me for my misogyny. I better get the heck out of here. I mean, do you understand that militaries are for killing people? Does anyone understand that? Have we forgotten that part of it? I mean, you need an actual military if there's a war. I am the anti-war guy here. And even I acknowledge that. This is insanity. The stated missions of the formation of the task force was to, quote, address the issues of racism, sexism, and other destructive biases and their impact on naval readiness. At the time, the Chief Naval Operations Admiral Mike Gilday said, as a Navy, uniform and civilian, active and reserve, we cannot tolerate discrimination or racism of any kind. Okay, agreed. We must work to identify and eliminate individual and systematic racism within our force. See, was there systematic racism in the Navy? Yeah, a little bit. But, that's not what they're talking about when you push the wokies onto people. When you push the wokies, they see systematic racism in everything. They see it in math. They see it in math. These people aren't scientists. They didn't come up with this stuff in a lab. They're just spewing this stuff. They're just making it up. Lived experience is not science. Yes, we don't want racism or discrimination in the Navy, but we also don't want everybody to be so sensitive that they're constantly correcting their language. You have a Navy to run. That is why we are standing with Task Force Navy 1, One Navy, which will work to identify and remove racial barriers and improve inclusion within our Navy. Stop using the word inclusion. That doesn't belong in the military. Militaries are not inclusive. They're conformist. Okay, you join the Navy, you get the same haircut as everybody else, you do the same grunt work as everybody else, and eventually you get assigned to something, and then slowly you start moving up. Should women get special treatment in the Navy? No, they should shave their heads too. They should. If they want to be equal to men, why wouldn't you shave their heads just like the men? Give everybody a buzz cut. What's the difference? Oh, but now they want special privileges. Now women get their own hairstyles. Oh, well, how much longer before the men get their own hairstyles? I identify as different genders at different parts of the week. So in some weeks, some parts of the week, I will have a buzz cut. But other parts of the week, I would like my hair long. So I'm going to keep my hair long. I mean, that's what it's headed towards. You cannot accommodate these people. They will never stop asking for accommodation. Never. They won't stop asking. Once you open the door a crack, they're like, aha! And they start pushing it open. And soon, it's just insanity. Stop entertaining this. TF-1N was founded during a time of national crisis and emphasized the Navy's expanding efforts to invest in I&D-related efforts. I don't know what that means. In doing so, we increased the propensity of members of diverse ages, genders, and ethnicities entering and continuing service as members of our One Navy team. That's not the purpose of the Navy. It's not to get more people in it. If you don't have enough people, raise the pay. You'll get more people that way. You don't have more people because being in the Navy sucks. This will not make it suck. In fact, it'll make it suck more. This is going to drive people out of joining the Navy, which is exactly what a country like China would love. They would love for the Navy to be completely woke and totally crazy. They would love it for somebody to give an order and then as the order's being given, someone starts picking it apart because, well, you got a gender pronoun wrong and I can't forward this order, and then everything gets delayed and it's chaos. That's what it's headed towards. It's headed for like in the in the movies with Soviet like submarine guys, there'd be one Politburo guy who was, pushing all the communist propaganda, or in the World War II movies where the bad guys from Germany had a guy who was always, part of the secret part of the bad guys from World War II. The guys wore the black uniforms. Those guys that would push orthodoxy and ideology rather than military stuff. That's what this will turn into. It'll turn into, well, we have our inclusion and diversity officer here. You'll have to run it by they. It's just going to be a nightmare. Oh, IND, inclusion and diversity. Jesus, it's already there. It's already in. TF1N leadership conducted numerous program reviews and deep dives to create a series of additional recommendations related to matters surrounding gender minorities. Why is this an issue in the Navy? Updating, naming ships, buildings, and streets. Also, not something the Navy should be doing. Okay? That's something for the top brass. It's not for anybody else. Yes, who cares what they name the streets and the buildings and the ships? Oh my God, we hurt someone's feelings. Oh no. You're the military. Updating Navy core values, the CNO's professional reading list, whatever that means, countering hate speech, I guess, but you have to define hate speech. What you should be countering is division within the ranks. Racism is a problem, yes, within the ranks. But policing hate speech, that's not going to work. Do you know the filthy things these people say to each other in the military on a constant basis? Do you have any idea? Of course not. Because the person who came up with this idiotic idea is, first off, probably female. Second off, probably didn't serve anywhere fun. Or if they did, they had a terrible time because everybody was constantly cursing and saying vulgar things. Newsflash, that's the way guys work. If you've ever worked with a team of guys, they say the most vulgar and disgusting things all day. But it's not like they mean it. It's how they operate. They bust each other's stones all day. And they say gross things. Sometimes it gets a little too gross. And usually somebody will call them out. But this will make sure that bonding never happens. Because one guy or girl or person of a gender minority will say, well, that was uncalled for. I'm reporting you to the IND officer. I felt triggered. I was working in war and I felt triggered. I mean, really? when the Greatest Generation was fighting the Japanese during World War II on a lot of Navy vessels, do you think, the machine gunners stopped and said, gee, I feel really triggered in this situation here, as he was mowing down the Japanese soldiers? I don't think so. I don't think he'd be bothered with gender. I think he's bothered with survival and winning the war. Following orders. You have to be able to respect those above you. There's no respect for a person who says, Oh, you can't talk that way. I have no respect for someone who says things like that, because they're trying to police what I say and what I think. And what I think belongs to me, not to you. You don't get to police it. Not in the military, not anywhere. These woke tards are ruining everything. This has to stop. This has to stop. Oh, there's more. How long is this article? My God. This is from Post Millennial, by the way. Recommendations include I&D cannot be a one and done. Growing diverse teams and building inclusive workplaces take an intentional and sustained leadership focus. Yes, because they're not uniform. They're not conforming. It's a bunch of woke nonsense. 2, ensure clear, balanced, and consistent I&D messaging focused on strategic Navy outcomes. Here's a strategic Navy outcome. Stop focusing everything on gender and race. Ignore it. Make everybody the same. Treat everyone the same. That's what you should be doing. Not, oh, we gotta right the wrongs of the past. Ensure ownership and accountability to reinforce words with tangible actions. Nobody has ownership of the Navy, you morons. They're in the Navy. If anything, the Navy owns them, at least for the time they're enlisted. Accountability, yes. Yeah, you could use some of that. Are you going to get it? Absolutely not. Because it's the Navy. It's a big, huge organization. And just like everywhere else in the world, there's very little accountability. Very little. This is just, I can't believe how upset I am, quite frankly. It just goes on and on. On and on about inclusion and diversity in the Navy. When it comes to inclusion and diversity, we can choose to either be committed or involved. We choose committed. What? Oh my God. This is the worst thing I've ever read. Look, if you want to own a private company and be inclusive and diverse and ruin your company with this woke nonsense, knock yourself out. But the Navy, man, we need the Navy. The Navy patrols. The Navy patrols. What are you going to do when you're patrolling the seas along the coast? You remember what Captain Phillips and the Somali pirates? Okay, the Somali pirates have a lived experience. Should maybe you start a dialogue with them instead of machine gunning them? Is that where we're headed? Well, we figured the lived experience of the Somalis, we wouldn't stop them from murdering and looting, some tourist, because we felt their lived experience was valid too. It was a valid choice. I mean, that's where we're headed. And there's no sense telling Joe Biden about this. He's leading the charge. The woke Navy. Join it today for wokeness.